What's good, YouTube? Cardfight King here, Aqua Life, baby. You already know how it is. Uh, just wanted to talk real quick about this GB8 phenomenon that seems to be going around the community right now. Um, I know everyone's going crazy over, oh my gosh, such powerful effects, Die King, blah blah blah. I get all that, but looking at it realistically, how long is the game going to last? You're rarely ever in these days and time, and I'm not talking about when you're going, road deck, whatever it is. I'm talking about like more the meta decks, Gear Chronicles, Night Rose for that instance, and things like that. Um, Even Luard to a degree. You're not really going to see GB8, and you can make the excuses of, oh, use G guards, blah blah. Well, and then the new G flipping G guards. I'm like, okay, sure. But again, that means that you're going to have those heal triggers in your hand to more or less make them viable. And I'm not saying that no one's ever going to get to GB8, and I'm not saying they're bad cards. I'm not saying no one's ever going to get to GB8, but in a realistic sense of view, and I've been play testing heavily online. I've seen this in real life in tournaments and things like that. Good, at least for right now, where we're at in the game, getting to GB8 is a long stretch, especially for clans like Spike Brothers. Spike Brothers don't want to get to GB8. If Spike Brothers are at GB8, then they're doing something wrong, and their opponent is doing something wrong, and it's resulting in a match that should not occur. Spike Brothers don't want to be in a long game. They don't have the defense to do that. They have all offense. They're the biggest glass cannon. They're the true definition of a glass cannon in Vanguard. So them getting to GB8, means that they're going to have to get a card that flips up multiple G units at a given time to do that. But clans like Spike Brothers shouldn't be really getting there. I'm looking at Aqua Force too. We already play Aqua Force, so we got to include that in there. When it comes to Aqua Force, we have Commander Thavis, Wailing Thavis, we have Lambros. Okay, those are more or less our offensive strides, so to speak. We can throw in our GB8 whenever our GB8 stride gets revealed. If my opponent is still alive through a Commander Thavis plus, because usually Commander Thavis is our first stride nowadays. Unless you go into G guard first, then go into him as and then GB3 or whatever. But after Commander Thavis, and we'll be at GB2, if our opponent lives through 2 copies of Lambros, or a combination of Lambros and a Wailing Thavis or whatever it is, then generally, I would say that we're in a bad position, because I understand that we do have draw power like Melania, we have like Saberflow set and things like that, but that would mean that our opponent's defense has to be unbelievably high, or they are heavily controlling our field. GB8 to me is going to be a lot stronger in control decks like Link Jokers and Mega Colony, things like that. Decks that extend the game past where past where it's going to be, past where a tempo and an aggro deck can take it, because GB8 is for the long game. It's when you've exhausted a ton of your resources and you're at wit's end. This is like your ultimate finisher stride. This is my Hail Mary pass, so to speak. That's how I see GB8. For Gear Chronicles, for instance, yes, Gear Chronicles getting GB8, but between the TikTok Mellum, and yes, TikTok Mellum's still a thing, between even just the Mellum combos that you can do off of your first stride, and then your second stride, you're generally going into next stage to finish off your opponent and put him in a losing position. By the time you're there, it's kind of like Metallica Phoenix to put you at GB2. Next stage, put you at GB4. Maybe you G-Guard, you're at GB5. Then you go into another thing, then you would have to go into another stride unit, maybe another next stage. And then by the end of that, you would be at GB7, but if you G-guard, then you'd be at GB8, then you have to get another turn. If a game is lasting long that your opponent more or less has survived through 2 next stages, Metallica Phoenix, the Mellum Loop, and things like that, then something in the game has to be going wrong on one side, because you're, next stage and whatnot, next stage, Lambros, Wailing Thavas in a sense, Diablo, whatever it is, they're like finisher strides. If your opponent is living through those finisher strides, then I don't know what to tell you. Maybe we're going to get a G-zone, a damage zone extension, so that could be a little bit more possible. I don't know. I'm just thinking about the possibilities, but my overall argument is that GB8, guys, is nothing to get super hyped about. If anything, you're going to be running that card as a one-of. It is a true one-of card. You look at where our G zone is right now for Aqua Force. We have let's say for Thavas, we have 4 Lambros, we got 4 Commander Thavases, because you need 4 copies of each. Thavas makes the best uses of Lambros, and Commander Thavas really works in conjunction. I'm not going to go into all that, but then you have 2 copies of Wailing, 4 G guards, so we're at 14 Sea Breeze, because grade 2 game, I hate playing Sea Breeze, I hate using Sea Breeze, I hate him taking up an extra space in my deck, but there's that. And then your next space would possibly, you might just throw in your GB8 card. But what I'm getting at is for decks like us, who are trying to push damage, Thavas plays a really good tempo game and being able to control the board. Blue waves want to kill you too. We don't want to be in a game too long. That's the thing. That's the thing. Decks that don't want to be in a game too long, even Gear Chronicles, they can play a long game, but they don't want to be in the game too long. They don't want your opponent lingering around with getting more drive checks, more chances to heal, more chances to check triggers, more chances to complete their setup and things like that. You don't want to be in one of those long haul games. You want to be in a game that is either short for your benefit or a good pace tempo game where your finishing moves cripple or kill your opponent. That's where, that's generally where you want to play. If you're playing a deck like, Chaos Breaker, you're playing Dark Face, then sure, they don't really have a finisher, so to speak. They're just sitting there controlling the board, making the opponent use resources and playing for a longer game. Then I can see GB8 for them being useful too. But again, it's not something that you want to aim for. That GBA is not something that you want to aim for, something that you want to aim to use. Because if you're aiming to use it, that means that you're trying to keep your opponent in a stretched out game in which provides you with more chances to lose. Provides you with more chances to run into something your opponent does that you really don't want them to do. Especially if you're trying to go for GB8, your opponent's stuck on their backup grade 3, for instance. You don't want to stretch out the game to where their opponent gets to their main grade 3 and has, all their cards popping off. You want to be able to kill them while they're on there and take advantage of their disadvantage, so to speak. Decks like Pale Moon. Pale Moon has that burst, coming from the soul, multi-attacks, a lot of attacks. They don't want you to be in the long game, because decks like Pale Moon, decks like Dark Irregular, even though you have, Bladewing Tybalt, those types of decks are on a time limit. Those decks are on a serious time limit. Their deck is getting thinner and thinner and thinner. Because you're soul charging consecutively and things like that. So decks like that are on a time limit, they don't want to be in the game by GB8 because their resources will be low. They might not even be able to drive check at that point. I mean, look, I love Shaharlet. Shaharlet's probably one of my favorite Dark Irregular, Dark Irregular cards. My boy Black, Black Steve, owns the deck, and I love playing with it. I don't want to go to GB8 with that deck. There's a reason why Shaharlet, the GR Shaharlet was made. There's a reason why Guild Raise was made, because you understand that decks like that are on a time limit. And they're not trying to sit there and deck out. If I'm sitting on Charlotte, by the time my deck gets to be quite thin, I want to be in a position where I can push my opponent to 6. I want to be able to use Gilded Rays to finish them off, force my opponent to either no guard or drop their hand. And if they drop their hand and I don't get through, they're heavily crippled, so that the next turn I can go into another Gilded Rays or Charlotte to finish them off. So again, that's just a few examples of why I feel like this GB8 thing is a nice idea in a sense, but for decks that are on a time limit, that don't have great defense, spikes, and a lot of other decks, and decks that don't want to stay in the long game, and decks that just have a lot of burst and a lot of multi-attacks, combo, and whatnot. Decks like those don't want to stay in the game too long. And GB8 for them is one of those things where I feel that the game is not going in those types of decks' favor. And if they're at GB8, then something has gone wrong and you are not in a winning position. That card possibly will get you the game, or by the time you get to GB8, you've already more or less lost. Hypothetically speaking, obviously. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Comment down below what you guys think about the GB8s. If you guys want me to talk more about the GB8s, I'll make another video talking about it, because I think I will make this a 2-part video, because I do have more to say about GB8, especially when the Aqua Force one gets revealed. So we'll see. I'll see you guys in another video, but comment down below what you guys think about these GB8s. And again, remember, I just think that with these GB8 cards, these GB8 cards are a nice idea or whatever, but they're a good idea if games were a lot longer. If we were possibly in like a Legion-like format or Limit Break-like format where there's multiple turns instead of opponents, instead of people winning on the first and or second stride, because you can win on your first or second stride depending on how much burst your deck has, how much advantage they can build, and the combos and the things and the access, access that they have. I think GB8 is built more for control decks who do stretch out the game, but they stretch out the game in order to secure that chokehold on their opponent, where they really can't do too much. And by GB4 or something like that, your opponent already knows that they're fighting a losing battle. That's kind of how I see GB8 is. It's better for control decks than a lot of other decks. But again, comment down below on what you guys think, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.